Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the science that shapes basically everything around you, from the ads in your social media feed to the stuff you see on your local grocery store shelves. We are talking about demographics. All right, let's just start with a question. Have you ever been scrolling through your phone and just been kind of spooked by how an ad seems to understand exactly what you need or want in that very moment? Yeah, that's not a coincidence, and it is definitely not magic. What you're seeing is the result of some really powerful tools that are used to understand people on a massive scale, and it's all part of the science of demographics. You can think of this whole process like an architect drawing up a super detailed blueprint. But, instead of designing a building, companies are designing a picture of their ideal customer. Basically, a blueprint of you. So what are demographics really? Well, to put it simply, they're just the specific, measurable characteristics that describe a group of people. This is what lets businesses and researchers spot these huge patterns in our behavior, our economic choices, and our social trends. Okay, so how does this consumer blueprint actually get built? Well, like any good plan, you got to start with a solid foundation, right? We're talking about the most basic, easy-to-measure facts about a person. And these core stats, you'll probably recognize them. Things like your age, where you live, how much you make, whether you're married. On their own, they might seem kind of simple, but when you put them together, they form the absolute core of any demographic profile. Okay, let's take income, for example. It is so much more than just a number on a paycheck. It's a really powerful predictor. It helps figure out everything from your spending habits and your access to credit to the kinds of products and lifestyle brands you're probably going to be into. And it's not just about you as one person. It's also about how many other people are packed in around you. That's a concept called population density. And believe me, it is a huge factor for businesses. Just think about the difference this makes. On one hand, you've got a super high density market, right? Like a single city block in Tokyo. The demand is incredibly concentrated. Now compare that to a low density area, say rural Montana, where the market is all spread out. You're going to need completely different game plans for everything from ads to just getting your product to people. But, a really good blueprint isn't just a bunch of black and white numbers. It needs some color, some context. It needs to understand culture to really come alive. And that's where we start adding these deeper layers, the ones about identity and values. These are the layers that add all the nuance. We're talking about things like your ethnicity, your socioeconomic class, and even your personal values, attitudes, and interests, the stuff that makes you, you. So ethnicity, for instance, it's a big part of what's called culturally adaptive marketing. And that's really just a fancy way of saying that companies recognize that a shared heritage or language or traditions, well, that stuff often influences what we buy and how we see different brands. And this brings us to something I find really fascinating, psychographics. See, if demographics tell us who you are on paper, psychographics try to get at why you do what you do. So picture this. Two people, same age, same income, live in the same city, but one of them spends all their extra cash on rock climbing gear and the other buys rare books. That difference, that's psychographics. All right, so let's add one last but super critical dimension to our blueprint: time. Because the era you grow up in, it shapes you in profound ways. It groups us into these distinct generations that are all defined by the historical moments and experiences we shared. In the world of demographics, a group that shares a big life event, like being born in the same chunk of time, is called a cohort. Just think of it like a team that's moving through history together. So this timeline shows 3 of the major cohorts that marketers and researchers are really focused on today. You've got the adaptable Generation X, the experience-driven millennials, and of course, the digitally native Generation Z. And each of these groups has really distinct traits that were shaped by the world they grew up in. Gen X, for instance, they had to bridge that gap between the old analog world and the new digital one. Millennials, they came of age right as digital became totally integrated into our lives. And Gen Z, well, they're defined by being hyper-connected. They've literally never known a world without the internet. Okay, so we've got the core stats, we've got the cultural layers, and we've got that generational pulse. The big question now is, how do marketers and researchers take all these different pieces and assemble them into that final profile?
Well, the key to making all this data actually useful is a process called segmentation. And all that means is taking a huge, diverse population and slicing it up into smaller, more similar groups based on all those characteristics we've been talking about.
And it works pretty logically, step by step. You start with the basics, right? Age, location. Then you start layering in those deeper details, like values and lifestyle. After that, you look at bigger trends that are affecting everyone. And finally, you form these distinct groups, or segments.
And these finished blueprints, wow, they are incredibly powerful and they're used everywhere. These segments become the target audiences for, well, for pretty much everything. They influence the products you see, the political ads you hear, and even the public health messages you get.
Which, of course, leaves us with one last kind of big question. Now that you've seen how this detailed blueprint of you gets made, how much of it is really you? And how much of what makes you who you are is just something you can't put into a category?